There are three important factors that most players lack in their fighting gameplay, and as a result, it heavily impacts their performance, and you may be affected as well. But today, I'll be helping you to improve in these three factors so you can go from average stats to being top 4 in every match. Welcome to the 5th video in my guide and tutorial series. Previously, we tackled many fundamental elements of the game to practice in order to improve at the game, and here's every topic that was previously discussed. The topics I will be going over today are on screen, starting with tips and tricks. Every character in fighting has their own special ways of influencing the game, and by using each character in specific ways, other than the way you're expected to play, you can achieve unique advantages. With this in mind, I'll only be giving a little bit of tips and tricks for each character, for the sake of time, but I'm sure that the comment section will have much more tips to give you for your specific main. So go ahead and leave your own tips and tricks or questions about a character in the comments below. Let's start with Sword. Sword is able to use any ability while in his E animation, and the dash momentum can actually be cancelled by using M1. With this, you can perform a trick that I call kidnapping. You can use your E towards someone, cancel the momentum, activate your empowered attacks, and drag them back to where you just were using E again. You can do this very fast if your timing is good. Skateboard is similar to Sword in terms of combining abilities. If you have a lot of speed on skate and you want to dive on someone, depending on how fast you're going, his D-board can become pretty difficult to land. To fix this, you can cancel all of your momentum by holding Q while holding E, and you'll be able to stay in one place to D-board. Also, while hitting a trick, as soon as you land and press your finisher, with the right timing, you can drift with your ultimate. With Biograph, I don't see players do this enough, but you should always be holding M1 so that you can passively charge your attack speed, but don't charge it too high that you explode. This helps when you're using Q on someone, you'll already have the bar high enough to do high bursts of damage and get out. Also, when ulting, your abilities and dashes get reset, so hit a Q on someone before ulting so you can teleport straight to them for high DPS. Not many players know that Katana actually does 2 marks on an enemy when you pull them through your shield, so definitely use that mechanic more. Also, when you're low HP, do not charge your M2 all the way. Just press it to do a quick slash, and this will help you get your shield back and also give you your ability back faster. And did you know that Banhammer gets more attack range when you're attacking diagonally rather than looking straight at someone? But for his ultimate, it's the opposite. When you're looking straight at someone, the range is larger to catch someone. You can also cancel your momentum when using your Q with your ultimate and catch characters like Slingshot and Rocket easier in the air. Speaking of Rocket, this character can be one of the fastest characters in the game if you use his rocket jumping technique. By shooting at the ground on yourself, with the correct timing and angle, you can launch yourself pretty far from a situation. With Slingshot, a good tip I can give is that when you're charging your shots, I find it better to release when the bar is a little bit after the halfway mark. But do not spam click on Slingshot, you're just gonna do no damage. Also, all of your abilities, if you hit them, give you movement speed, so you can stack speed while using multiple abilities to your own advantage. On Hyper Laser, a really good tip I can give is using your hold version of your E when a skateboard is circling around you. It's really good against the skate, and sometimes you can use your Q as a melee attack, quote unquote, because there's no delay on the grenade when you hit someone directly, and it pushes them backwards and wireframes them. Shuriken has a massive burst damage combo if you go invis, behind someone, release 3 Shuriken, backstab, and then release 3 Shuriken again. Shuriken's backstab can also be used after a grapple if you cancel the grapple by jumping and then turning around and backstabbing someone mid-air, but the timing will take a little bit of practice if you're new to it. Scythe has many ways to defy gravity and walk in the air. When you use her E ability, you are able to float in the air for a couple of seconds if you switch to your rifle, or if you use M1s. You can use this to get an advantage against characters that are better on the ground than in the air, like Banhammer, Coil, and Biographs. You can also use Rifle Ult in the air at any height and drop down unexpectedly with this mechanic. Also, please use your gun to retrieve ammo from your marked targets and not your scythe. Medkit's gun is not 100% accurate to the crosshair on your screen, so when you are aiming for headshots, try to aim a little bit above the head, especially when you are shooting tanks. Headshots are very easy to hit on Katana and Banhammer when you aim like this. Also, if you use your E correctly and on time, you can cleanse any debuff and free yourself from, let's say, a skateboard ult, for example. Boombox is also a character that relies on timing a lot. This character is pretty straightforward. Use an ability, time it correctly, and deal more damage. So when you have your finisher, similar to Biographed, all of your abilities reset. So you can put 2 speed trails down, for example. So after using all your abilities before your finisher, just activate your finisher and deal double the damage. Subspace is not so great when it comes to dealing with divers, and in just 1v1s in general. So you should stack all of your 5 mines close together and stand around them so that if anyone is chasing you, unless they want to take a lot of damage, they have to avoid the wall of mines you set up. And as for your ultimate, you have a great chance of hitting your ultimate when you use it underneath floors or close to corners, so that it's not directly visible and people not paying attention will run into it. And to be safe while doing it, you can use your M2 on yourself and use your ultimate quickly. Vine Staff is a very good healer with a lot of offensive and defensive capabilities as well. With her ult being able to cleanse debuffs, you can save your whole team from any sort of debuff from enemies. You should also place your sprouts on higher ground if you don't want them to take random damage from nearby enemy crossfire. Vine Staff has a deadly combo with her Q and E together, nearly dealing around 105 damage, but it's not really smart to use your abilities for damage at all times. And finally, Coil. You can deal 72 damage to anybody nearly instantly if you press your M2 after hitting an E recast on an enemy. It's basically impossible to miss too. Also, many players that try out Coil don't seem to know that his Gravity Coil E ability, while in the air, can actually be aimed. The more you look down, the more straight you'll dive. The more you look forward, the more diagonal you'll dive. Aiming also comes into play with nearly every character. And with characters like Slingshot and Hyperlaser, you can't afford to miss shots if you want to perform well. When it comes to aiming, there's a few techniques I personally use to improve my aim. Keep in mind that this is fully my opinion and my style. So the first thing I do is make sure that my thumb is warmed up by basically stretching it. Your thumb is very important for aiming with a mouse, and of course, if you're a mobile or console player, then you're always aiming with your thumb anyways. The second thing I do is warm up my reaction time. As you can see, I average about a 170 ms reaction time. So I just use a human benchmark test and repeatedly do reaction tests until my number can get pretty low. You can also improve your reaction time by playing rhythm games. So games like FNF, for example, you can play songs that are fast, and since you have to react to the notes, it'll speed up your reaction over time. These things are important because your thumb helps with moving the mouse slowly and smoothly, instead of jittery and flicky. Combine this with reaction time and you'll be able to track targets easier and react in time when your opponent does a random movement. It's hand-eye coordination. Those tips were just the preparation for aiming, but for the next points, you won't want to ignore because of how important they are. When you're in-game, you want to make sure you limit how much your mouse is actually moving when you're aiming, because you should also aim with WASD. Using your character movements to move the position of your crosshair helps a lot, especially against targets that are far away. Even though everything I just said is important, this is the most important tip of them all, and it helps me the most out of anything. So if you want to aim better, you have to tell yourself in your mind that I have to put my crosshair on the target. When you do this, you start aiming more intentionally, and you'll hit more shots. You'll also notice when a shot won't hit. Trust me when I say that this actually works. Some additional things I can give you on top of that is to look at your crosshair when you're aiming and not the person you're shooting. Use your peripheral vision to look at the target and stay focused on your crosshair. This may sound confusing since I just said that you should always tell yourself in your mind, I have to put my crosshair on the target. But you have to learn how to use both direct vision and peripheral vision to decide where your crosshair should go next. To make this easier, I recommend using colors that contrast each other, because you would react faster to seeing a yellow dot appear on a black surface rather than a dark gray dot appear on a black surface, because that's just how human eyes work. So make sure to use your colors to your advantage. And that is the reason I like to use a green crosshair. I am a huge hater of white crosshairs. On the topic of aiming, abilities also have to be aimed correctly depending on what type of ability it is. When you use an ability, you should not have the mentality of just using it only for damage. You should use it to help the survivability of you or your team. Depending on the situation, you have to either use your abilities for damage, healing, movement, or defense, for example. This is another one of those topics where there's just a ton of variations and it would take too much time to go through every situation and every use for every ability. Experience will teach you this better than I can. And the comment section can also be very helpful for this topic. If you're dying to type that paragraph on how a character should be used, then go ahead. The more knowledge, the better. You should especially leave biographed and skateboard paragraphs since I don't play those two characters. While you're down there, you should leave a like and subscribe. I think it would be better if I went through what you should not do with certain abilities for each character, with a few things on what you should do in the mix. And yes, we're going through every character down the list once again. Starting with Sword. Do not use the famous EQ combo. It's a waste of 2 abilities and it doesn't do that much damage in the first place. Also, don't use your E as a way to start a fight. It's better to use your E to chase someone down if they're low and running away from you. When you're off-board on skate, try not to use your attacks randomly until you're really sure that your M1s are going to hit, because every time you use M1, you lose walking speed. Similar to Sword, do not use your Q as a way to catch up to someone, whether on or off-board. On Biographed, try to avoid using your dashes only for movement, because it is your only escape option from an enemy, and remember that you are a squishy character with a self-damaging finisher. So don't activate your ultimate in a wide open space, and you'd be surprised how many times I see a bio use a finisher right in front of my team. Now Katana has 3 different variations of his M2, so you don't always have to fully charge it if you want to get value. And also you should avoid using your shield while in the air so that the bottom of the shield does not expose you. With Banhammer, if you want to use your M2 in the air, you should hold down M2 so that the animation does not activate until you hit a surface. Also, if you want to get a little more distance on your Q launch, you can press M1 and jump with proper timing to do a small bunny hop. When you're going to use your finisher on Rocket, don't use Q before it. You lose your only safe escape option and you become vulnerable for how long you have to stand still while ulting. Slingshot's abilities are pretty straightforward and easy to use, but you don't have to expose yourself when you're using your finisher, as it goes through walls and is very long range. But you should try to use your abilities last when shooting someone while you're in the air, since it consumes your airwalk timer. But as for Hyper Laser, honestly I don't know how you can use Hyper incorrectly, but I guess I can recommend not using your finisher on characters that move a lot. Shoot the characters that have less movement options first. Shuriken is in the same boat as Hyper, kinda hard to incorrectly use them, but while grappling, you can jump to cancel the grapple and keep some of your momentum. Scythe, on the other hand, is very easily able to be played incorrectly. Try not to use your abilities to chase someone because it does consume a lot of ammo. And when you're using Scythe ult, you should use your E upwards and then ult to make it less risky. You should also use Rifle against opponents with high HP instead of your Scythe, just because of the high damage of the rifle, unless they're really close to you. Medkit's abilities are one of the most important ones to make sure that you use correctly. Make sure you don't use your Q for movement purposes, because not only is it your only escape option, but it is also a teammate saver. Your E cleanses debuffs from allies, so don't use it for damage, especially when your team is low on HP. And a really important thing to know is that Medkit ult cannot resurrect teammates that die to Hyper Finisher, so don't waste it on Hyper Finisher. Boombox relies on good timing to be the most effective, so the only main advice for ability usage I have is just to practice using your abilities with a rhythm, since your finisher heavily relies on good timing for better support for your team. Subspace can use his M2 to counter divers easily, but it's not the easiest ability to hit. Don't forget that you're also able to recast your M2, and you shouldn't recast it if a diver gets hit by it because they will be able to escape since your M2 disables their movement options. Vine Staff can be a little bit difficult to understand for players that never use her, but you should use your Q onto enemies that are grouped up together to benefit your team, since Q helps your teammates heal faster when they attack the marked enemies. Similar to Subspace, Vine Staff is also able to sustain good against divers. If you can hit your E and slow them down to make them vulnerable, they'll be easier to kill. Finally, for Coil, you shouldn't use your Speed Coil E recast for movement, It's better if you use it to chase and escape, similar to Sword E. And it's important to never give regen tether to Vine Staff, and sometimes Medkit too. Never give regen tether to Vine Staff. It slows down the healing of any other source. But that would be the end of this video in the guide and tutorial series. This video is already going pretty long, so I won't have a gameplay section. And there was a lot of talking in this video compared to the other ones. But just a reminder though, that this video gains value for every single tips and trick comment that you leave for people to read. So I encourage everyone to leave things I did not mention and corrections down below in the comments. But I will see you all in the next one.